Hello and welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where bad comics burn. This is the story of the last of the Babylon stations. Babylon 5 was a science fiction series in the mid-90s, and it was one of the best damn sci-fi TV series of all time. The show tells the story of a space station in the middle of neutral territory between many opposing alien races and factions, with the goal of peace, trade, and cooperation between all these powers. Of course, since this isn't C-SPAN in space, there's a lot more going on. There are dark powers on the rise, secrets both compelling and terrible to be discovered, and a whole lot of character growth along the way. Babylon 5 is a show about peace, war, faith, tragedy, triumph, and most especially about standing up for yourself and making your own way. Babylon 5 is just a damn good show, and I recommend it to everybody. Like any show, it has its rough patches, especially in the beginning with awkward things like makeup, acting, and writing that got ironed out by the middle of the first season, but once the show gets running, it's non-stop. The series was created by J. Michael Straczynski, whom longtime watchers of the show might recognize for writing Superman number 701, and One More Day. Fortunately, we will not hold those against him. One More Day was not his choice, and Superman number 701... well, that comic was over there, and over there needs to take care of its own problems. Yeah, let's face it, not everything you create is gonna be gold, but Babylon 5 sure as hell is. For that matter, JMS has a long history as a writer, good stuff and bad stuff, in movies, comics, and indeed, TV. You might also recognize him from his work on the real Ghostbusters. He developed Babylon 5 with acclaimed writer and sufferer of no fools, Harlan Ellison. If you look in a mirror, close your eyes, and say Harlan Ellison's name 3 times, he will appear and berate you for all your failings as a human being. The show is conceived as having a 5-year storyline and a definitive ending. That being said, the show premiered in a very unusual way. An experimental network at the time, partly owned by Warner Brothers, called Primetime Entertainment Network, or P10. While ratings for the show were good, P10 itself faltered over time, to the point where it looked like the network would collapse before the 5 years were up. As such, while initially intended for 5 years, the planned 4th and 5th seasons were condensed into just the 4th, and then the show was picked up by TNT for another season and some TV movies, necessitating writing some new crap for said 5th season. The 5th season isn't bad, but it's definitely weaker than what came before it, since most of the important stuff got resolved already. There were also 2 attempted spin-offs: Crusade, another weekly series that got majorly screwed over by TNT after it premiered, lasting only half a season before it was cancelled, and Legend of the Rangers, a Sci-Fi Channel pilot movie that might have been good, but had a goofy as all hell interface for the ship's weapons systems. Just to remind you, someone approved this. Someone thought this looked good. But enough about the show itself, let's talk comics. From 1994 to 1995, DC produced a monthly Babylon 5 comic for 11 issues, which is what we're talking about today. But here's the cool thing. Unlike a lot of tie-in media, they're canon. Yeah, since JMS basically was the writer of the franchise, he could basically approve stories and make them work in continuity to the series, and with the comics, that's apparently the case. However, we have a bit of a problem here with that. The comics were produced during the show's 2nd season, when there were a few revelations about some of the initial mysteries of the show. Normally I wouldn't have to say this because, well, let's face it, if you're watching Atop the Fourth Wall, you know I'm getting into pretty much every plot detail, but part of the appeal of Babylon 5 is that there are mysteries woven throughout the story that get answered, and there's a bit in this comic that includes the answer to a big one for the 1st season. And as a result, this statement must be made. Spoiler warning, guys. The show is still good even walking into it with this knowledge, but you may want to see things unfold for yourself. So, quick background before we jump into this. It's the 23rd century, and humanity, under the united government of the Earth Alliance, has been making progress as an interplanetary power. They assisted several other worlds in defeating a brutal race, and that made them pretty confident about venturing out farther. Humanity made first contact with a race called the Minbari, and it was a disaster, misinterpreting a gesture on the part of the Minbari as an aggressive act, and fired on them, killing their greatest, wisest leader before running away. The Minbari, a spiritual, passionate, and very advanced race, were kind of pissed off about that and declared holy war on humanity, swearing to kill them all. The Earth-Minbari War lasted 3 years, with humanity only winning one major victory against them as they were driven back to Earth. However, during the final assault, called the Battle of the Line, the Minbari, seemingly for no reason, surrendered. Babylon 5 takes place 10 years later, with the construction of the space station meant to foster peace and unity after the war. During the first season, the station is run by Commander Sinclair, chosen by the Minbari to run the place. Sinclair fought in the Battle of the Line, but blacked out during the fight and can't account for 24 hours. The spoilers revealed here are by no means the only mysteries in B5, so don't assume the whole show is wrecked by knowing them. Still, if you want to proceed by watching, let's dig into Babylon 5 number 1 and see what's in store.
Welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where bad comics burn. Linkara's gonna teach you all a lesson you won't learn. Brodsky, you're not the smartest. Life out, you're not an artist. Anyone who's had a bad comic published, it could be your turn. Linkara, he's a man punch, wears a birdie hat. Linkara, he has a magic gun. Where'd he purchase that? Linkara, coins, robots, Amazons and trucks. Linkara, this comic sucks. Linkara.
The cover is just okay, a little sparse. We see the titular station up top with a space battle between Star Furies and Raider ships. The Raider ships are the Dorito-looking things, and coincidentally, they tend to have the tensile strength of Doritos too. Near the bottom, we see Commander Sinclair in a spacesuit staring at a black triangle that seems to have a bunch of electrical lines and a planet inside of it. I don't know if I dig this new redesign for the monolith. It was the dawn of the third age of mankind. The Age of Triangles. We open at the Battle of the Line, with a bunch of Star Furies, the aforementioned fighter craft from the cover, fighting against a Minbari cruiser. Some people talk about hell. They have surprisingly nice things to say about the resorts. I've been there. So have I. Let me tell you about Marville. The Battle of the Line. Earth's final stand against the Minbari. We couldn't even touch them. Does this bug you, Minbari? We're not touching you. Oh god, they're shooting! The sky was full of stars. Every star an exploding ship. And each ship one of ours. Which was admittedly more of a bummer for the planets orbiting those stars. The fighters continue their confrontation with the cruiser. Some people talk about death. Some people kill half the universe trying to score a date with death. I've seen its shape, its form, its lines, elegant and terrible. Turns out death is a rhombus. Sinclair is narrating for us, talking about how his entire squadron was killed by the cruiser, his own fighter heavily damaged and unable to shoot anymore. As such, he figures, hell with it, ram them. If I'm dying, I'm taking you demons with me! So, funny story. That line? That's the wrong line.
Not like this. If I'm going out, I'm taking you bastards with me.
And no, it's not like it was from an earlier draft or something. JMS confirmed that he sent DC the original line, and for whatever reason, it was changed to that. I don't know, maybe they thought it matched better with the whole being in hell narration. As Sinclair speeds toward them, everything goes black, and we cut to the present day, where Sinclair is on board a Minbari cruiser. My name is Jeffrey David Sinclair. Rank, Commander, Earth Force. One of 200 survivors of the Battle of the Line. 12 years ago. For some reason, no one ever seems enthusiastic about my Battle of the Line reunion parties. 200 survivors out of 20,000 ships. 20,000 pilots, 20,000 voices crying out in the night. They all just stepped on a Lego. Sinclair is informed that he'll be meeting with the leaders of the Minbari, the Grey Council, in 30 minutes, and he should prepare himself. Naturally, his method of preparing is a flashback to a few days ago on Earth. He's been summoned to Earth Dome in Geneva and is talking with a senator about it. He's been sitting there for 2 days without any explanation why he was recalled. Minor spoilers, but in the last episode of Season 1, the Earth Alliance president was assassinated, although the official investigation declares it an accident. Babylon 5's security chief was also injured in the investigation, and Sinclair being recalled is not what's needed on B5 when there's been such a massive upheaval in Earth's government, accident or not. The senator tells him he doesn't know any more than him and to stop calling it an assassination. Our field reports say it was an accident with the ship's fusion reactor. Were you there? No! My report says Lincoln had a heart attack at the theater. Not that he was assassinated. I mean, were you there? No. Check and mate. That night, Sinclair is woken up out of bed by... Oh, jeez. These are official presidential security forces?
There. Sure glad I don't look stupid in this.
Who the hell designed these uniforms? Yeah, I get wanting to wear more practical armoring if you're security forces, but the weird built-in sash design, golden epaulets, some kind of weird mesh on the arms... I don't know, maybe they're supposed to be cosplaying the police from The Fifth Element. Anyway, he's brought to former Vice President, now President Clark, who goes over his file in front of him. Career officer, soldier, fighter pilot, and diplomat. I dare say you've done better as diplomat than you have as the rest. You say that, but honestly, I think my future lies in professional dancing. It's late and you're wondering why I've summoned you. Turn around, Commander. There's someone I think you should meet. Pretty elaborate way of getting him onto the 23rd century version of This Is Your Life. He's greeted by a Minbari named Rathen from the Grey Council, and Sinclair recognizes him. What we found out in Season 1 was that Sinclair was brought aboard the Grey Council ship during the Battle of the Line, and did see a few of them without their hoods, hence how he recognizes Rathen. What? What do you want? Why, we want you, of course. We're going to take you to your home. The Grey Council has shifted their operations into taxi services. Sinclair doesn't know what he's talking about, but Rathen takes out a small triangular device and holds it up to him. This is the Triluminary, an ancient Minbari artifact that apparently has multiple functions, like making him exude wavy lines. That clip is actually pretty apt, since it makes him recall what happened. He failed to ram their ship and was instead brought aboard so he could be interrogated. The Minbari had planned to continue wiping out humanity even after Earth's destruction, so they needed intelligence on any unknown Earth colonies or military outposts. However, during the torture and interrogation, they held up the Triluminary to him, and it glowed. Why is that significant? Well, apparently the thing only glows in the presence of Minbari souls. Rathen explains that they did the same to other pilots they captured and interrogated, and it was the same. They all had parts of or full-on Minbari souls. The Minbari religion doesn't really talk about deities, but it does believe in a form of reincarnation. In each generation, the souls of our people are reborn. Remove those souls and the whole suffers. We are diminished. Over nearly 6,000 years, the soul well grew smaller. Our people were born in ever smaller numbers, because, you see, there simply weren't enough souls to go around for all our race. Sounds to me like what you've got is a labor shortage in producing new souls. We'll have to outsource soul production to other species until we can get our quarterlies up. But yeah, there's more. The Minbari surrendered because their greatest law is that ape shall not kill ape, and for one Minbari to kill another is abhorrent. Thus, killing humanity meant killing themselves. Sinclair is a bit flummoxed, especially learning that Clark knows about this. And you knew? All this time? You knew? No, Commander. Not until I assumed this office. I mean, I needed this like I need a bullet in my head. Of course, we mustn't let this become common knowledge. People wouldn't react well. The Minbari wouldn't take it much better. I can see the YouTube clickbait titles now. You were the only one who heard our deliberations. The only one outside the Grey Council who knew the truth. In retrospect, we probably shouldn't have been talking about it in front of you in English, but it seemed impolite to do otherwise. Like, seriously, the Minbari have 3 languages and they say they mind-wiped Sinclair because he overheard their conversation about it? Or hell, even if he somehow did understand it, why didn't you send him into another room while you talked about it? In any event, Rathen reveals that when the Minbari surrendered, they did share this revelation with Earth's leaders at the time, and they of course kept it secret too. Once we had sued for peace and told your government the reason why, we mind-wiped you. With your government's permission, of course. And we see Clark face-palming. Well, Sinclair, at least you can take comfort in knowing that that was the shadiest thing that this government has done. Later, Sinclair is in a garden contemplating all this. President Clark approaches him. Look, I don't believe this Minbari soul crap any more than you do, but they believe it. We were dying. It didn't matter that it was insane. Everything was insane. The human race faced extinction. Millions were dead, and the new Star Trek show was put on some proprietary streaming service. Clark says he doesn't blame him for being angry about this, and that if he wants to resign his commission, he'll see to it that he gets full retirement pay, full honors, basically anything he wants, seeing as he's earned it. However, Sinclair is just confused about Rathen's comment about taking him home. The true reason Clark called him here is because if he doesn't resign, he has another job for him, becoming Earth's ambassador to Minbar. No one else has had as much experience working with them. Sinclair is reluctant to take the job, especially in light of then recent events on B5. However, Clark makes it clear that they'll keep him up to speed on developments with his personnel. The dialogue continues as the panel shows us Sinclair's journey to the transfer point, on board a shuttle called Icarus. Aside from the fact that Babylon 5 already has a pretty prominent ship in its mythology called the Icarus, why the hell do you have 2 spaceships named after someone known for crashing? I'm just saying, you might as well name your spaceship the Titanic. Do you expect good things to come from this? The Minbari specifically asked Sinclair to be their first ambassador to them, though Clark doesn't know why. It could be guilt over what they did to him, maybe they're just comfortable with him, and maybe they need you. We've heard about trouble between the Minbari religious caste and the military caste. It's possible that, well, the religious caste might just need an experienced soldier they can talk to. Oh, yeah, not ominous at all when the section of a society devoted to religion says they need some military experience to call on. Will you accept the job, Commander? Do I have any choice? No, Jeff, not really. Yeah, that offer to let you retire with whatever you wanted? I was just kidding. I'm kind of a bastard. Later, on board a Minbari cruiser, Sinclair is told the Grey Council are ready to speak to him. Sinclair folds a piece of paper into his pocket. May I ask, what were you reading? Requisition order for a new shirt. I mean, seriously, this is formal clothing for an ambassador? It's got a big sash down the center with a pocket in it. Words. A poem. By someone who died a long time ago. Someone who believed in hope for the future, but also knew that the future is always difficult. It goes, "My anaconda don't want none unless you got buns, hun." Sinclair thinks reading it to the council will be helpful. I see. Perhaps you will let me read it sometime. Wait, you're not on the council? Then why are you in the big robes? Yeah, sorry, this is actually a janitor's uniform. The theory is that we wipe the floor as we walk. However, a nearby Minbari, who I presume to be the recurring character Narration, glares at Sinclair and says, "Lies. All lies. They told me Sinclair had a great ass. That thing's flat as a pancake." And so our comic ends with that poem. And, as per the character, it's of course one by Alfred Lord Tennyson. Though we are not now that strength which in old days moved earth and heaven, that which we are, we are. We are Popeye the Sailor Man. One equal temper of heroic hearts, made weak by time and fate, but strong in will. To strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. So when you get old, become a treasure hunter even against the advice of everyone else around you. Anyway, this comic is not that great. Here's the problem. The fact that like 90% of it is just dialogue is not an issue. You can have a compelling story without any action scenes whatsoever. However, what they're talking about only holds significance if you're already familiar with Babylon 5 and Commander Sinclair. And that's just fine if this book is only intended for B5 fans to pick up and read. I'm hardly the guy to be disparaging about additional media catered to just the fans of the work, but what we get in it is really not that interesting. The revelations here were pretty much already given by the time this comic came out. The only new information we get is that Earth's government was complicit in Sinclair's mind wipe, but we don't really see much of Sinclair's reaction to this news. He just sits there stoically. And despite having had a reputation on B5 as being stiff and unemotional, we've seen plenty of emotion from Sinclair when he needs to show it. And since this is a major revelation and the answer to the question that's been bugging him for a decade, it's kind of confusing that all we see is him sitting on a bench brooding. The "I've been to hell" stuff just doesn't really add much and it feels kind of trite. More interestingly, though, is President Clark, who's almost given a bit of a sympathetic angle in this, given what he's discovered, and how he reacts to learning what happened to Sinclair. Plus, the seemingly genuine offer of letting him retire and give him anything he wants after what he went through. I say it's interesting only because, well, let's just say Clark on the show is anything but sympathetic. One last thing to note, though, that does affect how one looks at this issue, it's actually the first of a 4-part story. Not that there's a to be continued or anything, but it might be better viewed if in context with the rest of the storyline, which does actually visit B5. All in all, just saying that if this comic was intended to interest people into getting into Babylon 5, it doesn't do a very good job of it. Next time, we continue on the sci-fi train by looking at another issue of The Star Wars. And just in time for a month after Star Wars' anniversary, because I'm smart like that. It was the dawn of the third age of mankind. Unfortunately, it was overcast that morning.
Scout Ship Vigilant, this is Drydock 1. You are clear to proceed on your current heading. Estimated time of arrival here is 15:45 Zulu. Out.
Not bad. Not bad at all.
Well, right now it's barely a hull, so I'd say it's pretty bad, actually.
Well, I mean, even that we got this going at all. Joe was very generous with the resources he gave us.
Well, considering how many weapon systems you're giving him to play with, I don't think he sees this as a bad thing.
I think it's a bigger miracle that this ship is going to be ready in only a few months.
Well, it'll be flyable in a few months. Building the ship isn't the problem. It's stuff like programming, test flights, testing weapons, stress testing components. There's still a lot to do after it's built.
I look forward to it, though. Why don't you check out the plans for the weapon systems? I've got a few calculations I've got to run here.
Right.
Still, the firepower isn't going to be nearly enough if he reaches his full projected strength. Guess that means I'm going to need to come up with a backup plan.